out loud.
I feel like I've done this one so many times, I always miss it. Um, okay. Because dried peat moss, which is derived from S moss, contains no chemical additives and is a renewable source, many gardeners use large amounts of the soil conditioner in the belief that the practice is environmentally sound. They are
Okay.
mistaken.
Okay, so stop at that first sentence. What is going on in that first sentence?
Um, that gardeners use dry peat moss, which is contained from that moss, as a conditioner for their soil.
Yeah, because they believe it's economically sound, right? They use large amounts of it. They're like, hey, dried peat moss that comes from this thing has no chemical additives. It's a renewable source. So these gardeners use large amounts of it because they believe it's environmentally sound. Cool. They are mistaken. That's going to be our conclusion, right?
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Even that, I feel like you've come so far on. Of like I feel like your conclusion finding is so much better.
I agree.
Okay, so now when I read they are mistaken, my first instinct is like, well, why are they mistaken? Right?
Mhm.
Like when I'm actively engaging with it and I'm like, tell me more about this dried peat moss.
I know you're always in my head. I'm like, okay, well, the same thing happens. I'm like, okay, well, why?
Why? Tell me more.
Yeah.
Like, do they have a card? I'm just kidding. Okay, so go on.
The millions of acres of S moss in the world contribute more oxygen to the atmosphere than do all the world's rainforests combined. So this is kind of where I was like confused in the answer choices. I remember because I was like, okay, so this moss is contributing more oxygen than the rainforest. So I was thinking that's a good thing in my head, but I guess it doesn't really matter. And then it says the garden soil industry is depleting these areas much faster than they can renew them. So
what is this explaining?
yeah, that's what I was like trying to understand. Like that essentially like the garden soil is like messing up these environments. I was just like, I don't understand. Because it was saying that they contribute more oxygen than all of the world's rainforests, but then it says that it's depleting these areas much faster than they can renew. Right.
Yep.
So essentially, they're not really doing, it's not benefiting.
Yeah,
Or it's not,
you're taking this other, like you're just creating another problem.
yeah, it's not environmentally sound or whatever.
Excellent.
Okay.
So what kind of question is this?
Which of the following principle of valid helps justify the argument's reasoning? Um, is it strengthen?
Yes.
Okay.
So what are we trying to strengthen?
That they're mistaken?
Yes. And so what are they? So we're trying to so we're saying the gardeners belief that this practice is environmentally sound. So we want to strengthen the idea that this practice is not environmentally sound.
Okay.
What's your prediction here?
Um,
Like what would make it so that what the gardeners are doing is for sure wrong? Like we kind of are alluding to it in our support, but take it to the next level.
I mean, they're unable to recover. Like it says they can clean, they can renew themselves. I'm so bad at doing predictions.
Right, that's a great thing. Maybe like this week in particular, that's what you're going to work on specifically, like your predictions.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm thinking of like why is it not so like why I'm thinking that why is this dried peat moss or this sphagnum moss like important? Like we know it's like this oxygen,
Mm-hmm.
like maybe like and like if we could somehow show like just how essential it is, that would strengthen this, right? Like what like them doing that other thing is worse or worse for the environment than or I guess like we would rather them use something else than use this sphagnum moss or something.
Okay. Yeah, because that's what I was like. What I was confused because I was like, well, if it's producing more oxygen, that's a good thing.
Right. But you see how like, right. And so you then assume though that that's enough. Sometimes we need to explain why, oh, this oxygen, like why. So I guess the thing is like sometimes it could produce more oxygen than anywhere else in the world. But what if we have enough oxygen without it? Then does it matter?
No.
But we bring in our outside information of knowing that cutting down trees and deforestation actually is a problem. So we
Right.
assume that this is justified and it's not.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes. That's what was confusing me. I was like, well, if it's
You're like,
producing,
it sounds like common sense. Like it's like it's hot outside. We should get ice cream, right? It sounds like common sense, but at the end of the day, it's not quite enough.
okay.
All right, so let's go ahead and start with A.
Using a product may be environmentally unsound even if the product is renewable resource and contains no chemical additive. I was like, I kind of like A because I was just like, okay,
Yeah,
that's
I like that too. Because how would you diagram A? What kind of condition does if introduce?
see, this is why I'm so bad. So is it? Am I thinking sufficient or
Yeah,
no?
sufficient. Yes, if is sufficient, right? Because it has an F in it, so it is sufficient.
Mm-hmm.
So if this happens, so if the product is a renewable resource and contains no chemical additive, it may be environmentally unsound, so not good for the environment.
Mm-hmm.
With my hesitation with A, what do you think is my hesitation with A? Like, why don't you think I love it?
May.
Yes, I would prefer something stronger than may.
Okay.
But I'm gonna leave it because it's at least better than nothing. Like I'm like, okay, I'm gonna leave it, but I don't love it.
Sure. Okay. A practice is not environmentally sound if it significantly reduces the amount of oxygen entering the atmosphere. Then I was like, yeah, I was confused about B because I was like, well, it's not saying that it's reducing oxygen. So I don't know how that correlates with this.
Oh, okay, but let's look at this. So once again, what is our sufficient assumption, or what is our how would you diagram B?
Not environmentally sound and then reduces oxygen.
What word introduces sufficient or necessary here?
If.
So if it significantly reduces the amount of oxygen, so if it reduces oxygen, then what?
Not environmentally sound.
Yes. So we have to see, do we have this trigger here? Does what they're doing significantly reduce the amount of oxygen?
I thought no because it says that it contribute. Well,
But if they're taking it, like like the moss contributes to it, but they're depleting it.
okay. See, this is where I was kind of confused because I was like, I thought it was contradicting because I think I was just so stuck on that part that I was saying that it was producing it, but then
Oh yeah, it is producing it, but they're then it's just that's like saying trees create oxygen, but we're taking the trees to build paper.
yeah, I don't know
Like,
why that didn't click. Okay,
so then why do you think I like B over A?
because the not like it's
Yeah, it tells us it's not environmentally sound, where A only says may be environmentally unsound.
okay.
I'm gonna cross off A.
Because yeah, I was like stuck on that, and I was like, yeah, that sounds great, but that's not what's happening. We are producing oxygen, but then I was like ignoring the last part of the sentence. So okay. A practice that is environmentally sound if it helps to protect rainforests that contribute large amounts of oxygen. Okay, that's not really strengthening our
Yeah,
argument.
if it does this, it's environmentally sound. We're trying to prove something is not environmentally sound, so we can cross this one off.
And then if the environment benefits of a practice outweigh the environmental costs, that practice can be legitimately considered environmentally sound. We're not really talking about cost, and it's not really geared towards.
Yeah, like if, yeah, so we don't have this thing, we don't have this sufficient happening here.
Okay.
All right, and then E.
And then if the practice of an industry threaten a vital resource, those practices should be banned. What practices? I mean, they're not really.
Yeah, and should be banned. We're not trying to prove something should be banned at all.
Okay.
And so that's why our answer is B.
I should have got that right.
So